The webinar has started.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Williams. I'm the CEO for the Home Furnishings Association. And today we are doing a webinar on sales boot camps for top performers. And what we're really hoping to take away here is relooking at the sales process and really talking about new innovative ways to grow sales, how to get your top performers performing even better, how to get salespeople performing more, engaging better with customers, really like how to close more sales. It's a tough time right now. For anyone watching, just a reminder, you can actually go back and rewatch this. The webinar is recorded and will be available on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. And at the end of today's webinar, there will be an Ignite code. So if you are on our Synchrony platform, stay tuned because we will give that out at the end of today's webinar. Any questions that you have come up, and please give them because these guys are amazing at answering questions. Just put them in the chat at the bottom. I'll be monitoring that. And I will get to as many of those questions as time allows. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Synchrony, who is our education thought leadership sponsor. And let's go ahead and jump into today. So I'd like to introduce our sales training experts, Rob Ball and Matt Pridemore. They are the sales trainers for HFA Sales Academy. Not only are they seasoned experts, they grew up in this industry and they've spent their entire lives immersed in the furniture business. Between them, they've got more than 50 furniture stores, or about 50 furniture stores, and they just have a deep passion for this industry. It's really what's led them to become sales trainers at HFA Sales Academy, working with them for a few years, and they just are here. They really want to see the industry thrive and utilize their knowledge and what they've learned and the strategies to really help everyone else succeed. And so the industry has embraced them. And I will share it as we go. But if you have not yet gone and done a trial, hfasalesacademy.com, you can go and try their LMS portal. It's completely free to try. Jump on it and see, and you get a little of these guys in your pocket every single day. I would say, who doesn't want that? That'd be opening up a can of worms. So let's go ahead and just take it away. Matt, Rob, let me throw this one at you to start. One of the questions that came in when people were registering was, can we just do a quick overview? What are the steps of the sales process that people should be reconsidering from the time maybe that someone comes in to the time they walk out the door? What are those? What is that sales process?
Yeah. So, first things first, thank you so much for having us. So we're very blessed to be a part of this team. Like Shannon said, I started out my career as a sales associate and I've had a lot of successes, but I've also had a lot of failures, and we've been able to learn, over time, what works in this industry. And so while Matt and I talked to you, we're not just people that came from a different industry and came into this and said, hey, this is the way we do it in the car industry or houses or whatever it is. We're furniture people. We own furniture stores. We practice what we preach every single day. And so at the end of the day, the sales process, the way we look at it is very simple. It all starts with the greeting. That's going to be your first step. I think everybody on this webinar knows that. The second step, which in my opinion is the most important step, is going to be the reapproach. Then you have discovery after that. You have presentation, trial close, which is a huge step that's oftentimes missed. Then we have the close. And of course, at the end of the transaction, whether a customer buys or does not buy, we have to follow through. And I know Matt and I are going to talk a lot about that, but ultimately it starts with the greet. We're going to do a reapproach. We're going to ask some follow-up questions in discovery. We're going to present. We're going to do a trial close, and follow through.
What's the most important part of this process? Obviously there's 7 steps to go through, but if you're a salesperson and you're like, if I had to focus on one of them today, what's the most important step I need to be thinking through?
So I think, from my opinion, the reapproach is the most important piece. I think every single person on this webinar has been beaten into their heads, ad nauseum, that they have to greet customers. We all know that that's important. And I know Matt's going to talk a lot about the greet on this webinar here, but ultimately one thing that we see, I was just in 50 other furniture retailers across the state of Florida over the past, 30, 35 days or so, mostly in August. And out of the 50 stores, I was greeted in all 50 of them. Every single one of them, I was very proud of that. Only 11 of them came back to me to see if I had any questions. And so that's like 20.5% or something like that. And so you think about it, at the end of the day, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder when it comes to the greet, but everybody knows when a customer comes in, the customer is going to tell you that they're just looking. And that's okay. The customer will bring that up and you can preempt that and you can talk about that. But at the end of the day, customers are going to say it no matter how great your greeting is. And my question to every single person on this webinar right now is, have you ever sold somebody that said that they were just looking? And I guarantee you, we have maybe about 100 people nodding their heads that they have absolutely sold people that said that they were just looking. And so if that's true, that means that those customers are liars, right? I always say this. I've said this in the last webinar. I'm going to say it again, but this is very, very important for everybody to understand, is that customers are liars, but customers are not actors. And so I'm gonna say that again. Customers are liars, but customers are not actors. So what do I mean by that? Customers tell you that they are just looking. Customers tell you that they're not interested. They're going to give you the Heisman pose. They're going to do all these different things, but they're in your furniture store. They've seen other furniture stores. They've started their journey online. They have a Pinterest board with living rooms and bedrooms pinned to it. They just lied to you, but guess what? They're not acting because they're in your store. And so one thing that we see as an industry is that you have a lot of sales associates that do a decent job greeting the customer, but then they go back to the water cooler, they go back to the office, they get a cup of coffee, they talk to their manager and they say, well, they're just looking. I'll just let them browse around a little bit. They're just looking. They're not interested in anything that I have to say. But you know what? I bet you some of the best salespeople on this call right now have seen that, you know what? They can go through, they can reapproach those clients out there on the sales floor, and they skate the floor and they get another sale. And I guarantee you that a lot of those top performers get yelled at for skating the floor or stealing my customer. Wait a minute. How could you possibly be stealing my customer if you greeted the customer and then you went back and had a cup of coffee for 10 minutes and that customer was looking at a bedroom set? And so sales associates need to pay attention. So the most important step out of all this is reapproach. But the most important thing that we all have to remember is that sales associates have to pay attention to the most important person in our industry. And the most important person in our industry is the customer. It's not TikTok. It's not Facebook. It's not that cup of coffee. When the doorbell rings, the most important thing that you should be doing is paying attention to your customer. And if they tell you that they're just looking and you feel like that's a valid thing and you want to let them browse, but it's important for you to pay attention to the body language, because customers are liars. They lie to you, but they're not acting. So they're going to act as if they're very interested in a particular category of furniture. And if you can pay attention to that during the reapproach, when you reapproach that client, you can come there with a lot of value.
I love where you're going with that, Rob. And to kind of take that a little bit further, if you're taking notes right now, I would use the term sticky, staying sticky with the customer. And like Rob, I do believe that reapproach, actually, I believe part of the most important is the time between the greet and the reapproach is the most important step in the process, that interval in between there, because you're going, like Rob said, he's getting greeted 95 to 100% of the time, but then getting reapproached like 10% of the time, maybe. And it's that time between the two of what you do. Like he said, maybe going and having coffee or, going on break, whatever it is, that we see this happening every day in the furniture industry. So if you can stay sticky with the customer, which doesn't mean staying right on top of them, but it means paying enough attention to them that even without asking, they are going to give you the answers. If they start touching certain furniture, or they slow down in front of certain groups, that's literally giving you the answers of what are they really looking for. They don't have to actually tell you. And we are talking to, more seasoned sales associates right now. So that's the direction we're going with this. So every bit of that for me literally starts from the time that customer walks in the door. And where we want to go with this, specifically going back to the greet, is that when that customer walks in your store, everybody that is on this call can agree that when that customer walks through your door, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, 100%, that customer has done one of two things. Either they've been a couple of other places shopping for furniture, or this is their first stop for furniture. One of those two things has happened. And the only way to know which one of those two things has happened is by asking questions. And all you have to do is ask them, welcome to ABC Furniture. My name's Matt. Have you been a few other places shopping today, or do we get to be your first stop? And if you can get a question like that in, as soon as they walk in, make that part of your greet. And you can go back and rewatch this and pull these notes from this. Like Shannon said, it's being recorded. But asking questions like that is going to get you really far, really quick, because we did talk about the greet and the reapproach and the discovery and the presentation. If you can get on into that discovery really early on and ask them a question, to me, that's not like putting pressure on them. It's the fact that every step in the process is a step towards you being able to be proactive instead of reactive, and a chance for you to increase the percentage of a closing. Because if you can have those answers all along the way of asking them a very simple question of, have you been a few other places, or do we get to be your first stop? And you get that answer, then you can move on to a whole nother set of questions. And this is something we talk about in the Sales Academy all day long. So if they do say, I've been a few other places before I came here, then you can go to a whole new set of questions. And that next set of questions becomes, okay, in a seasoned sales associate's mind, if a customer tells you they've been a couple of other places shopping, boom, in an instant, that should be able to tell you right there that they did not buy at the other places because of either what, price, or maybe selection, or maybe they just didn't get the customer experience of that other place that they were looking for. And if we know then that one of those three things has happened, then that's going to get us even further in the discovery to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to be able to help this person? Because at the end of the day, Rob, like Rob says, you know, the greet is to engage in meaningful conversation, that getting you towards that close. Rob, does that make sense?
100%. You know, one thing that I want to say, you know, Matt, you got my mind moving a lot of things. Fundamentally, sales is a transfer of emotion, right? Sales is a transfer of emotion. And what emotions do you want to bring out of the customer? And so if you knew, and I'm going to ask everybody this question, obviously, I like to do interactive webinars where I have people that can give me some feedback here, but I'm just going to ask you guys a question, and I think you guys know the answer. What would you do if you knew that 90% of the customers that you talk to tomorrow or today were buyers? How would you talk to them? How would you pay attention to them? Would you follow up with them? Would you get their information if they didn't make a buying decision from you? I can almost guarantee you, because you don't know which 9 out of the 10 are actually buyers, right? But you know 9 out of 10 are buyers. Well, here's something that's crazy. There's some data that's coming out of Placer AI, and I got a fairly recent statistic on this. But over the past 90 days, 90% of clients that entered into a retail store that did not make a purchase have either come from or are going to another furniture related business. So think about that. Number one, the most important piece, we keep saying the most important piece, but the most important piece is your mindset. You know, if you have 3 customers in a row, knowing that sales is a transfer of emotion, if you have 3 customers in a row that all told you they were just looking and they told you to, kind of kick rocks and get out of here, I don't want to deal with you. What's your mindset like? But we know that 90% of customers are going to make a buying decision because 90% of customers are shopping for furniture and they're going to multiple furniture stores. When was the last time, as just a rational human being, that you went to 2 or more places that carried the same goods without intentionality? When you're really just looking. Now it's possible, right? You might just be looking for, 6 months later, you got to get a car. But here's the deal. In 6 months, when that lease is up, you're going to buy a car. In 6 months, when your house is done, you're going to buy furniture. And so every single client that you talk to will be buying furniture in the future. Every single one, 100% of them, right? And so if we take that mindset forward, you're going to greet a little bit differently. You're going to reapproach a little bit differently with your own intentionality because you know the intentionality of the client is so high. You're going to present to that customer and discover what that customer's needs are with a lot more intentionality. You're going to do trial closing closes. And more importantly, you're going to follow up with the non-buyers, which is something that I can tell you is an absolute epidemic that's happening in the furniture industry right now. I mean, it's amazing to me from a different sales perspective. If you go to like house sales, I mean, if you were showing somebody $1 million home, and you showed them $6 million homes in one day, what's the propensity of that realtor to give you a call or a text that same day or maybe the next morning about those homes, seeing if you have any questions? It's 100%, right? They're not going to be a realtor very long. But you know what? I mean, I've only been followed up with that 50, right? Of the people that I talked to, follow back up. I follow I asked the sales associate for additional information, whatever it is. I only had one of them shoot me a text. Only 1 out of 50 locations followed up, and I was doing everything right. I was showing all the buying signals. I was measuring things out. I mean, I was putting it on them like a secret shopper, right? It was phenomenal. But at the end of the day, only 1 person reached back out to me. I mean, I was ashamed. One of those stores wasn't mine. I went into my own stores and I wasn't followed up with because they didn't know who I was, right? And so at the end of the day, that is something that is so important for sales associates, top performers. What do top performers do? It's not what they say. And if anybody here is looking for the special thing to say, we can give you some of those tools. But realistically, the top performers don't say much things differently than what your lower performers say. It's the actions that they take that make them top performers. It's their relentless pursuit to superior sales and superior income. That's what gets them their higher income and their higher sales performance.
Matt, something that you mentioned early was talking about like really starting from that greet, the just looking. Julie Diaz is watching right now. One of the questions that she had when she signed up was, when a customer does come up and they put their hand up and to say, I'm just looking, What are some ways, and Rob, you just mentioned this as well. You have some things to say. What are some things we can say to break down that wall and help engage that customer?
Sure. A lot of people take that I'm just looking as a negative. And, I would kind of spin that around and get to a proactive side. Everything that we do should be proactive. And if they do give you that Heisman that I'm just looking, that's totally okay. That just means that you've got to figure out the different ways to bring them value. That's what we have to do at every level is we've got to bring the value. So instead of getting some of those questions in at the greet that we just talked about with, have you been a couple of other places or do we get to be your first stop? Some of those type questions might get pushed out into from reapproach to discovery. But one of the key things is for me is to start to get verbal contracts. Please write this down if you're taking notes right now. Get a verbal contract. If they are pushing you away and they're saying, I'm just looking, that's totally okay. But if you can get them nodding yes of, I completely understand. You're wanting to look for a few minutes. Do you mind if I come check on you in just a few minutes? And get them to say yes. The key here is a verbal contract of them shaking their head or mouthing yes to you of, yeah, I don't mind if you come back and check on me in a few minutes. The key there is in a few minutes, you actually do need to come check back on them. And when you check back, that's a time that you can start to insert a little bit more value. But we look past that. We get down. We think I'm just looking is a no. I'm just looking just means giving me a little bit more time. Let me see if I feel comfortable, because we know that 8 out of 10 customers know within a couple of minutes of being in a store whether they're going to buy or not based on that greet, based on the reapproach, based on those pieces, based on the look of the store. So getting a verbal contract with them makes it a lot less intrusive when you do come back up. So when you say, do you mind if I check on you in a couple of minutes? And then you do check on them in just a few minutes, and you figure out a way to bring value with you in a few minutes, that starts to kind of flow. They start to believe in you a little bit more. You made a promise that you would come back, and then you did come back. And naturally, in their mind, they're saying, okay, they said they were going to come check on me. I was okay with them checking on me. And then you did. And then with that, being able to bring a little bit of, okay, if you stayed sticky, we talked about sticky a few minutes ago. If you stayed sticky enough while they looked around, maybe it's 40 or 50 feet, but it's close enough that you can see, are they looking at living room? Are they looking at dining room? Are they looking at bedroom? Okay, well, once you get that figured out, then something that you might come in with might be a question. So, okay, I see you're looking at bedroom right now. Are you looking for pieces that, you've got to have right now? Or is this something that we can design out that, it would be okay with you if it takes, 4 to 6 weeks to order that stuff in? Those are all questions, what we call probing questions that are part of the discovery process, and then, if you get past that, then you might want to talk about if your store, we've got Synchrony that sponsors this. So, if your store offers financing or something along those lines, then that might be some other questions that we ask. Are you looking to, to finance these type things? Or, we've got probing questions. We've got those videos throughout the academy, but it's those type things that get you further into the process to continue to be proactive. Does that make sense, Rob?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, when you have a customer that says that they're just looking, let's break it down just a little bit further and think about, number one, the reasons why people say it, and what can we do to be a little more proactive? What can we say? So first things first, a lot of clients that, of ours that we walk into, we do a little secret shop with them, and we find out what their sales associate is saying. Hi, how may I help you? Or welcome to XYZ furniture store. How may I help you? Just looking. It's a very generic greeting. It doesn't stimulate the brain, right? And so they get that everywhere. They get it at Walmart, they get it at Target, they get it at the gas station practically, right? And so I like to challenge most of you to try to change your vernacular just a little bit to something that the client doesn't hear. Hey, welcome to my furniture store. Which room are you looking to decorate today? So we are, number one, we're here to decorate, right? That's what we sell. We sell home furnitures, right? And so the client's going to think for a second. There's going to be a little bit of a pause sometimes. And don't get me wrong. Listen, clients can still say, hey, I'm just looking, right? And when the client says that they're just looking, this is an opportunity for you to sell with a little bit of emotion. Like I said before, sales a transfer of emotion, nothing else, right? And so clients are looking for two things. Number one, in order to make a buying decision, the customer needs to have some urgency and they need to have certainty, urgency and certainty. So from the greeting, if the client says, I'm just looking, we can say, oh my God, fantastic. This is the absolute best possible time to look. The reason why is because insert sale here, right? And so, I like to have my stores and, our client stores look like they're having an event going on whenever the client comes in, right? The first 10 to 15 feet of the store should have, some type of decoration, some type of special buy, some type of balloons, streamers, whatever it is, right? And I like to turn the music up just slightly louder than you might expect it to be, just to make there be a little bit of commotion going on in the store. So again, which room are you guys looking to decorate today? My name is Rob. Welcome to our furniture store. Which room are you guys looking to decorate today? Oh no, I'm just looking. That is awesome. This is the best possible time to look because it's our Memorial Day sale right now. Have you ever been in our store before? Yes or no? No, I haven't been in store. Well, great. Give me 2 seconds and then I'll let you guys browse. Here's an outlay of the showroom. We have our bedrooms, living rooms, right? You outlay the showroom. You kind of do like a store, layout overview. And by the way, here's our pricing and our sales tags. Now, I know sometimes our love seats don't have prices on them. Whatever your little quirky thing is about your store, you're going to want to explain that to them. So that way you're adding value to the conversation. And then at the end of it, even though they told you 5 seconds ago that they're just looking, after you're done with the store layout, you say, so guys, which room were you looking to decorate today? Go right back into it, right? I mean, if I said, hey, customer, you ready to buy this? Client says no. Do I just stop? I just say, no, I don't. Okay, well, they said no. I got to continue to go on, right? Clients are predisposed to say that they're just looking. You as a professional sales associate, a top tier professional sales associate, has to be predisposed to move past that and ask again after adding some value. Clients don't want to deal with sales associates. They absolutely want to deal with designers and consultants. And so be one. You have to add value in the greeting, overcome that objection, and then reapproach right there in the first 5 seconds of the conversation by adding a question again. So which room were you looking to decorate after you added value? And oftentimes you get the client to open up.
One other thing I do want to throw in, we can keep moving, but one other piece during the greet, if you are a top tier sales associate and feel like you can kind of change a little bit of verbiage up just a little bit, how about practicing a little bit with actually opening up with, after you welcome them into the store, go ahead and ask them, go ahead and flip everything on its head. And instead of giving them a chance to add, or, instead of giving them a chance to say, I'm just looking, go ahead and introduce the thought to their mind of, you guys just doing some looking today, or are you thinking about buying? If you approach it in that way, it becomes proactive, and you've basically taken a grenade out of their hands that they can throw, because they know if I just say I'm just looking, then they're going to leave me alone. Right. But if the sales associate brings it up and says, hey, welcome to ABC Furniture, you guys doing some looking today, or are you actually thinking about buying? Well, then that takes all the pressure off of everybody and completely flips it on its head. And then it becomes a fun thing to talk about. And then when they say, no, I'm just looking. Cool, what room are you looking for? Boom, we've just taken everything out of their arsenal there. And that's really every step of sales is, how can I take everything out of their arsenal? We know if we all went through every step of the process and talked about all of the objections, they're going to be the same for the most part all the way around. And if we can figure out ways to ask questions or to talk about them, beat the customer to the punch on every single one of those, your sales are going to go up. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Hey, Shannon, I want to add one more thing to Matt's point there. There's a lot of different ways to greet clients, right? If you have a big sales event going on, hey, are you here? Hey, welcome to our furniture store, whatever it is. My name is Rob. Are you here for our Labor Day sale? Are you here for Memorial Day sale? Are you here for our mattress blowout sale? Right? The client's going to say, no, I'm not here for that. Okay, great. Which room were you guys looking to decorate? Right? You're going right back into it. And so you're bringing things up that are of value that you're advertising out there. Because remember, a lot of clients, they may see the advertising that might be the thing that brought them in. And if you can mention the advertising within the first, 10, 15 seconds of conversation, the client might say, yeah, I was looking at your bedroom set sale. That looks fantastic. Great. Are you looking for queen or king, adult or adolescent? Are you looking for spare bedroom? You go right back into, you can skip the reapproach phase, right? Every single step in this process doesn't mean that you have to follow it. If you greet and the client wants to engage with you right away, well, obviously you don't need to reapproach because you're engaging, right? If the client already knows what they're looking for, you don't need to discover what they're looking for. You just might need to present some additional items to add on and build the ticket, right? If the client says, yeah, absolutely, I'm ready to write it up, you might not need to trial close. You might just go to the close. Hope that makes sense.
It does. And so something that you said earlier, Matt, is there's an objection that's going to happen at every point in your sales process. And
Sure.
the key to the sale is going to be pre-preparing for every one of those objections.
Yes.
Can we go through and talk about what objections are most common and how, so that everyone can take away whatever part they're struggling with? Some of them it's in that greet. I see some of them it's in the follow-up. I see some of them, a lot of them are in the close. What is the objection each of these people watching should be preparing for in each of those steps in the sales process?
Sure, we can break all those down. For me, going into the reapproach, um, I think price and selection start to happen during that reapproach phase, where they've started to look at some of your tagging, and really, if we know that they're going to do that during the reapproach, then make that part of your questioning during the reapproach. And if your store does offer financing, and a lot of sales, especially newer sales associates, don't really know how to bring up the whole financing piece. But to bring it up early, specifically on the reapproach, is to let them know. Obviously, a bunch of people are scared about their credit. They're not really sure. Nobody really knows exactly what their credit score is. But if we can ask it in a proactive way and let the customer be okay, everything they're looking for is certainty, and fear, we know, turns off all buying signals. Then for me, specifically with a financing or a payment type plan, might be, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I just want to check back with you, with this purchase. I know we were thinking possibly of financing. Just want to let you know we've got different financing. We've got financing for whether it's you're just starting out on your credit journey, or maybe you started your credit journey years ago and maybe fell off the horse and you're trying to get back on the horse. Or we do have some customers that have never had any major hiccups in their life with credit. But I just want to let you know we do have programs for all three of those, all three of those credit situations. Then we never brought up the term good credit or bad credit or any of those other pieces, but we let them know a little bit of certainty that there's a really good chance that we can help them here. And I think that's a big piece for a lot of people, that as you're talking through that reapproach to discovery phase of whether it is price, whether it is selection. And Rob, I'll let you piggyback on a few more of those, big objections.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the reapproach phase, one thing that we see sometimes is that customers are just biased, right? I mean, they just, maybe you greeted them, maybe they just didn't really like your vibe. And so if I reapproach them and I'm still getting the cold shoulder from them, it might just be me. And I'm, big enough person to say, you know what, I'm not for everybody. That's okay. But you know what? I have some other people on my sales floor that might be better fit for them. And so what I'm going to do is, after I reapproach, I may go back to a manager, I may go back to a top sales associate and say, hey, listen, and again, everybody's got their own, company policy procedures, but at the end of the day, the goal is to create a relationship with the client, engage in meaningful conversation, and ultimately get the customer some furniture and solve their problems. And so for me, it might be as simple as like, hey, listen, I got a TO, a turnover opportunity for a manager or a top tier salesperson on the floor. Say, hey, listen, I can help you out on this customer. Do you mind just talking to them real quick, just saying, hi, welcome to the store? I might have a manager go over there and say, hey, listen, my name is Rob. I'm the manager of this location. I'll show you guys here for a few minutes. I just want to introduce myself and to see if there's anything I might be able to do. Sometimes people want somebody different than the person that greeted them because they think that greeting person is a pushy salesperson. So from that standpoint, again, some clients really just want to browse your showroom, and you're not going to break through to every single one of them. They're methodical in their approach. They're going to want to walk around the entire showroom. And so you just got to try to make it as pleasant as an experience as possible. And they might not give you their information at the end, right? It's a smaller percentage, but it's possible. From the discovery point, this is something that we get a lot. You get a lot of clients that say, well, I'll know it when I see it. I'll know it when I see it. And so what I like to do is I say, well, have you ever seen it before? And it kind of puts them on their heels, right? Have you ever seen it before? Well, can you describe it to me? Can you show me on your cell phone where you've seen it before? What does it look like? Maybe I can order it for you. For a lot of the clients that we have, they do a lot of special ordering and design service, right? So the sky's the limit when it comes to that. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you've met the best possible person to help you with something that you're really uncertain of, because what I do is I help clients just like you find certainty. And so what I can do is I can pretty much order anything in the world as long as you can describe it, and I will do everything I possibly can to help you. You see, what clients are looking for during the discovery phase, especially if they're like, man, I just haven't seen what I'm looking for before, they want a salesperson, a sales professional to bring them certainty. And so let them know, hey, listen, I know what you're looking for is kind of hard to find, but I'm the person that finds hard to find things. I'm happy to help you as long as it takes. If it takes 3 weeks, I'm happy to do it, right? And so describe to me in great detail, or maybe show me a picture on the phone, something you've seen in the past, so I can run this down for you, because I know how much research this is, and I know how hard it is and how confusing it is, because furniture, you can see something for $12.99 online and you can see something for $25,000 and it looks kind of the same, but I'm the expert and I can help you with that. So when it comes to discovery, not really know what the customer's looking for. The next thing in presentation is going to be your features and benefits. And so a lot of times during the presentation phase, you have clients that do not speak their objections. So you have to think about the psychology of the human being, which it's great for us because we're all human beings. And so we just got to look internally to think, well, what would my objections particularly be if I was in the customer situation? So we got to find some empathy during the sales process to think about what their situation is. During the discovery phase, you may say, well, if it's a dining room set, well, how many people typically eat at the dining room set? Do you do any entertaining? Whatever it is, right? Well, it's 4 people. You don't see the 2 kids with you. Well, I'm going to assume if it's a husband and a wife there on a Saturday afternoon, the kids are probably playing at grandma and grandpa's house or something like that. Mr. and Miss Customer, is the other 2 individuals in the household children? Maybe they're looking for something a little bit durable. Are you doing homework there, right? And so asking some more probing questions, but during the presentation phase, relating it back to everything that I did during the discovery to show my competency to the client and to give the client certainty. And so if you're pitching a product to a client and you can kind of get, and you think it's perfect for them, it's possible that there was either a spoken objection that you haven't overcome yet, but it's even more possible that there was an unspoken objection that you have not uncovered yet. And so you got to go back to the discovery phase to say, well, what did I miss here? Because based upon everything that I've seen and everything that I've heard from you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, use their name as often as possible, I've kind of found a perfect piece. And so let me ask you this question. In a perfect world, what would you change about the piece? Because they might tell you, well, I was looking for a cup holders in it, or I was looking for, a leaf in it, whatever it is, right? And they may make, oh, thank you so much, right? You have to acknowledge the fact that they told you what the objection was. Thank you so much for telling me that. Saves me a lot of time, right? So let me find you something that can overcome that objection, overcome that situation that's in your household. Trial close is going to be very simple, and I think everybody kind of knows what it is going to be money, right? And so in the last webinar I did, it was probably a year ago now, I talked a lot about this, but during the trial close is one of the most apprehensive parts of the sales process. And so my question to everybody, and I say this in our videos, is have you ever felt buyer's remorse before you bought something? I mean, I know that I have, right? And so I went to buy a car. I needed to buy a car. My lease was up. I got a payment that was a little bit cheaper, and I'm sitting there in that office. I love the car. It's an awesome car. And I'm sitting there in that office and I start sweating. I know I can afford it, but I'm like, why am I sweating? Am I not going to be approved? What's going on here? I mean, did I miss a payment on my, on my credit card bill? I mean, what could happen? Are they going to come back and tell me I'm denied? I mean, so like you run these things through your head, even though you know that you're okay, your situation's going to be fine, but you're just normal human being. You're afraid of rejection. And so during the trial close, it's important that we qualify the objection before the objection ever happens. And so what we teach and what we train our individuals and what we practice in our stores is right before you ask for the money, you go back through the presentation phase and you qualify the objections, both spoken and unspoken, and you re-pitch the product very, very briefly. So I'll give you a brief example if we have time. Is that fair enough, Shannon? Is that cool? Okay. So if let's say you got a sofa, love seat, coffee table, 2 end tables, 2 lamps. What I'm going to say is, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I just want to go over everything with you just very briefly. So that way I make sure that I don't miss anything. Well, it's just true because I've been known to forget some items that the client has talked about, right? So we have your sofa and your love seat. Now those come with 4 matching throw pillows all together on both. So you have actually a total of 8. And those are going to match the drapes that you showed me a picture of and the rug that you have in your home today. And also we have the hand carved wood on the feet of the sofa that's going to match your wood on your floor. So I just want to make sure I explain that to you. In addition to that, we have the matching coffee table and 2 end tables and the lamps that actually tie everything together, both when the actual structure of the lamp, but the lamp shade as well. It's going to pull it all together. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, was there anything that I missed? And you're going to ask them that question and they're going to say no. That means that you have everything and then you explain the money. So I repitch the product. And again, it could be like, let's say a reclining set that has the USB ports on both ends so you can charge your cell phone, your tablet. And so that way your kids don't have to fight over the charger. It's all right there. And so, whatever it is, right? Your table and, chairs. Well, I got 2 additional chairs. So that way when grandma and grandpa come over, they have a place to sit. You're repitching it very, very briefly right before you ask for the money. So that way there's value and not just the ask. And then the last one's going to be close. And of course, it just goes back to money. If you do a trial close very well, then the close is going to be fairly easy. If you get buyer's remorse there, it's very important that you show a little bit of empathy, but also kind of feel like you've been put on your heels a little bit. Kind of like, whoa, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I don't want to be rude or brash or anything like that, but I've known this a long time. What's the problem? What happened here? Because I thought we picked out the most beautiful living room set. Did I not give you enough information? I'm going to ask a few other questions. Now, remember, if I don't create a relationship with that customer, that's going to come off as pushy, right? It is. There's no doubt about it. And so in order for you to have that conversation with competency and confidence, you have to do everything right. In order to kind of put the customer back on their heels, well, hey, listen, what did I miss? Tell me, we've been working together for an hour and 45 minutes on your new living room group. I just want to make sure if I did something wrong, I want to make sure that I'm there for you and I can talk to you about it. And so I'm going to ask that client that question. But if I didn't create a relationship and we weren't joking around throughout the sales process, I'm not going to go that way. And then, of course, follow through, follow up. The real objection there is really going to be, from the client is going to be at the end of the transaction, like Matt said before. You're looking for a verbal contract at the end of a transaction, no matter what, right? And so if you make a sale, you're going to have a verbal contract, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. Would it be okay if I followed up with you, within 24 hours, just with some measurements, things like that, and to see if you have any additional questions when you get home? Or if the client does not make a purchase, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, is okay if I grab a little bit of information? We discussed a lot of things today, and I know how confusing it can be out there in the furniture world. Would it be okay if I shot you a quick little video or a few text messages about what we discussed today? And so from follow-up standpoint, the objection is going to be, from the client standpoint, well, no, I have everything that I need. Well, that's fine. Do you mind if I at least call you in a few days just to see what you decided? We're going to go back through and ask the client again. But the real objection when it comes to follow-up and follow-through is that the sales associates just simply don't ask. And I can promise you, if you do a good job and you show a lot of value through the sales process, the client's going to be more than happy, especially in the sale, when a sale's had it, where you can follow up with them if the sale's been made. But if the sale has not been made, it's even more important. So yeah, that's my top objections when it comes to those things and how I would overcome them.
That's a really good rundown. One of the things, Ryan Yoder had asked a really good question at registration, and he was looking for, the overall sales process and what each step involves. But I'd like to take it a step further. And Matt, if you could just quickly, going through those steps of the sales process, I think one of the things we talk about a lot is what happens and what is going on at the point of the sales of each sales step. What is the goal of each sales step, right? How do we know we've achieved it before we move on to that next step? So in the greet, what is the goal of the greet?
Yeah, I love that question. And the first word that comes to mind for me is earn it. So to get from one step to another, and like Rob said, sometimes you go from the greet to the reapproach. Sometimes you go from the greet to the discovery. Sometimes you can go all the way through really quickly. Sometimes it happens right there at the front door. And does the sales associate earn the right to move on to the next step? You've got to earn that. You've got to ask the right questions. You've got to be proactive. And you've got to bring enough value to that particular situation, bring enough value to the greet that they want you to reapproach, that you do set up that verbal contract. And then during that reapproach, bring enough value getting to discovery that you earn the chance to present the product to them. So if you think you're just going to roll through all of these, then your mindset is way off. And even to get from greet to reapproach, earning each of those steps. And if you do everything right, like Rob talked about just a minute ago, if you do everything right on each of those processes with asking questions and being proactive instead of reactive and bringing that value at each step, then you're going to move along in that entire step to eventually earn the right to ask for the close. And that to me is the most important piece, that to make sure that we do earn that at each step. And for any sales managers, and this is probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I want to go ahead and at least introduce it to make sure we get to it. But for any sales managers or maybe store owners or anything, one term that I want to use here is I want us to make sure that we stay away from employee casino. Employee casino, write that down, take those notes. Employee casino to me is when the level of the customer experience in your store is inconsistent and depends on which sales associate that potential customer gets as to what level of service they get. So they might walk in on a Tuesday and, one customer gets, your top notch, they do an amazing job. And, 45 minutes later, they get somebody that is less experienced, that they get a completely different, just not the same level of experience. And so to combat that, we have to make sure that we are training every day, that we are coaching every day, that we're going through these role plays every day. And really, you can use this as a game or use it as practice, that, coming up with those objections to make sure that it's always fresh on our mind. And another piece to that, besides employee casino, to stay away from employee casino, the other thing is to think of coaching and training and all these things like deodorant. And, Rob and I laugh about it, but the truth is that you apply deodorant every single day, and throughout the day, that deodorant wears off just a little bit. And what we see is you get seasoned sales associates that think, I know it. I don't need to, I'm good. I don't need any more. But it really is like deodorant. You've got to apply it every single day or it's going to wear off. And when it wears off enough, the entire thing stinks, and the entire sales process can stink if you don't reapply it every single day. And if you earn it all the way through, and every bit of what Rob was saying a few minutes ago was true. And even getting, let's take the presentation part of that, for instance. We'll go a little bit deeper on that. If you need some notes or some nuggets, I like to use the 80-20 rule on the presentation. And the 80-20 rule for me is that if by asking enough questions during the discovery process, that I can find something that I think fits about 80% of what they're needing, then I can also present about 20% of something that product does that maybe that customer did not bring up, to kind of wow the customer just a little bit. So let's find, does it fit 80% of what they're needing? Let's take a dining room set, for instance. They're saying it needs to be, 80 inches long by, 30 inches wide. It needs to be able to seat 4 people. And, they have, 3 to 4 meals per week at that particular table per week. And, they give us these different things, and we're able to match up about 80% of what they're needing. But then, let's say they don't even bring up that it needs to have storage, but then during your presentation, you're able to talk about, well, this table actually also has storage in it, where you can lift up one side of that table and put some storage in there. Like Rob talked about a few minutes ago with USB. If they don't bring up the USB, but it's something that you can talk about in your sales presentation, then those are things that are going to resonate. So use an 80-20 rule. If they tell you, hey, it needs to have A, B, C, D, and E, and you see a product and you're thinking in your head, okay, well, it fits A and B, and those are the only 2 that it fits, then don't go towards that product. And so knowing your product on the floor, and I'll throw this over to Rob, knowing your product on the floor, this is another entire can of worms that we could open. But if you are asking the customer probing questions during your reapproach and discovery, and you don't know what's either on your floor or in your catalog or anywhere else, you can't even get to this level of sales associate knowledge because you don't know your floor, and you can't get to that piece, and you don't know, where something that covers A, B, and C out of A, B, C, and D. If you don't know where that is, you're not going to be able to take that customer to them, and you're going to start losing sales. And that's where the knowledge, the deodorant, the 80-20 rule, all of this stuff comes back to knowing what's on your floor. Rob, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys remember one thing from this call is wear your deodorant and go to a casino. I'll tell you that. No, I'm teasing. But so back to the question. I think it's a very insightful question, and I kind of just took some notes while you were talking, Matt. So for number one, the goal of the greeting is to engage in meaningful conversation with the client. right? It's also the reapproach. Same thing. It's to engage in meaningful conversation. You as a professional sales associate cannot make a sale without engaging in conversation. It could be about their shoes. It could be about their car. It could be about the weather. It can be about furniture. But the first thing you have to do in order to influence people is to engage in conversation. So that's number one. Number two is to the discovery, which is Matt's point, right? The 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you want to find out what the best use is going to be for that particular item, right? You're going to try to find out the category of furniture the customer is looking for, any hot button issues that the client is, requesting that it include or does not include, right? But you're going to look at the 80-20, right? That's a great question to ask. And I've asked a lot of clients that over the years. So Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I know that you're looking for a living room set. Tell me what the best use is 80% of the time. It's a weird question. And again, it's going to make the client think for a second. What's the best use 80% of the time? Well, 80% of the time I, come home from work, we eat dinner, we go sit down there, we watch a movie with the family. It's 4 of us. Well, you need to have at least 4 seats for everybody to be in there, right? And then, well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what is the other 20%? Well, I do entertaining. I normally host Christmas. I normally do this. I do that. Okay, well, how many people are in that? And so if I can find something during the presentation phase, which is to use your level of competency during the sales process to make sure the client understands and knows that you've been paying attention. That's what the main goal is. Talk about the features and the benefits of what is important to the client. You know that the best use 80% of the time is that there's 4 people there. Well, we're going to have 4 seats and a sofa love seat, no problem. But we need to, have 8 seats when we have Christmas. Okay, so maybe we throw in an armchair, maybe we throw in an accent chair, maybe we throw in some of those poof ottomans, whatever it might be, in order to qualify that other 20%. Because I believe that if you can qualify the 80%, you have about a 90 to 95% chance of making a sale. But if you can qualify 100%, solving the 80 and the 20%, you have almost 100% of making that sale happen as long as the money's correct. And then the trial close, I've said it time and time again, I'll say it over and over again, sales is a transfer of emotion. What we're trying to bring, the emotion we're trying to bring is urgency and certainty, urgency and certainty. And so from the trial close, what I'm trying to do is bring up the level of urgency and excitement to the client to where the client does not feel buyer's remorse. And my goal for the close is to be so good during the trial close that there is no apprehension. That's the goal. And the follow through ultimately is to bring more value to the client than the competition. And so I know if I follow up with the client, I send them text message, I send them emails, I send them a video of the furniture that they were looking at with the features and benefits and the measurements. I know that my competition's not doing that. And so think about yourself as a bottle of perfume when you go to the perfume store. And so when you go to the perfume store, you smell 1, you smell 2, you smell 3. Now they all smell the same, right? And so as a professional salesperson, if you're the first stop and they're going 2 or 3 other places, how are they going to remember you? Well, that's why at the retail shop, perfume shop, they give you coffee beans. Be the coffee beans. Put yourself in there and say, hey, listen, this is the reason why you talked to me. This is, hey, remember me. I'm still over here. I know you talked to me 3 hours ago, but here's the living room suit, bedroom suit, dining room suit that you looked at with me. Don't buy that one down the street. I'm still here, right? And so you got to raise your hand. And, the old saying, everybody's heard it before, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so for me, be the squeaky wheel. And that is the most important piece in the goal of following through and following up with the client. And if a sale did happen, think about this. I mean, if you bought $1 million home, what's the chance of you getting a follow-up text after closing from the realtor saying thank you so much, or a closing gift, or a thank you card, or whatever it is? I mean, the chance is almost 100%, right? Especially if they're a professional one. Remember, we want to be top tier performers. And so if we're a top tier performer, what do the top tier people do? Well, they follow up whether the client buys or doesn't buy. There's no question about that. They're going to follow up with them and they're going to tell them, thank you so much for being a valued client. I want to be your friend in the furniture business, not just for today, but for the rest of your life. And I want to be your friend in the furniture business for your entire family. And if there's anything whatsoever that I can do for you, please let me know. Even if I don't carry it, I will do everything in my power to help you find it, not only at the best quality, but at the best price, even if that means it's at the competition. So now you're their consultant and you're the person that they always go to for certainty because they know you can solve their problems. And so that's my little rendition of what the most important pieces are.
That's really great, Rob. Thank you. So since we only have a little bit of time left on this, so time has flown by. I know I could talk to you guys for hours. And I would just like to vouch, I've spent a good amount of time with both of these guys in Las Vegas, and they know how to do casinos and they know how to do deodorant. So thank you both for that.
And coffee beans.
Everybody else is
and
welcome
coffee
too.
beans, yes. So one of the questions that I thought was really interesting that came up quite a bit was there are quite a few people on here that are sales managers or have sales managers. And they're really looking at how do you look at your top performers? How do you motivate them better? How do you push them more? And if they're really good in this area, how do you get them to look at other metrics? Can we talk a little bit maybe about how do you take that top performer and just push them up a little bit higher?
I don't mind taking that one, Matt. So first things first, you got to ask them, right? How do you motivate a top performer? You got to ask them. You got to get to know them. These are human beings. And what works for one is not going to work for others, right? I mean, I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not motivated by money, right? You could tell me that I'm going to get $100,000 bonus, doesn't mean anything to me. And so what motivates me is what I can do with it, with my family, right? And so, as much as I want money, right, I want to be successful. But for me, if you can make whatever my goals are tangible and align. And so it's important that you have a one-on-one mentorship conversation with your top performers, your low performers, your middle performers, everybody, to find out what really motivates them. There's a great book, Simon Sinek, Start with Why. And so why are they here? I know that they're here for a paycheck, but why do they actually grind as hard as they do? Why do they want to be a top performer? What motivates them? And don't just tie it back to the money. Point back to what the money is going to do for them and what they're going to be able to accomplish with it, right? So number one, ask them, right? Number two, your second question was something that I think that, I know I made a lot of mistakes when it comes to this, is how do you get a top performer to look at every single KPI and to take it that step further? Life sometimes is a little bit about sacrifices. And so I would caution everybody to really think about how hard you push for every little nitpicky thing in our stores. Okay. And I said this to a client recently, would you rather have a client that sells $100,000 a month, but hits 0 KPIs, right? No non-merchandise warranties, lamps, bedding, whatever it is, right? Doesn't get any of that. They sell $100,000 a month. Or would you rather have somebody that sells $30,000 a month, but hits every single KPI? And so volume is the one thing, the one metric that rules them all, right? It's like the one ring. We know that. And so if you have a lot of volume and you think that they can perform a little bit better in these other KPIs, simple encouragement and not disparagement sometimes gets it done for them. I think a scorecard in the store is very important, and a goal board is very important. I think that, a scorecard, and it's a balanced scorecard, to where you have, volume, you have any kind of warranties or any kind of KPIs that are important to your business, like bedding and lamps and accessories. You have a meaningful way that's fair and equal across the board to show them what their performance is. And I think that you cannot meet with them often enough about the performance. But remember, I'm telling you, if you go in there and you talk to somebody that's killing it, selling $2 million a year, and you go in there, you're like, well, I really wish your non-merchandise or your lamp bedding numbers were better and all this kind of stuff, you're going to lose interest with them. They're not going to respond well to that. And so you got to be a little bit delicate as you approach that. And so that's my 2 cents, a little bit of a cautionary tale. I know early on in my career, that's a huge mistake that I made. And so I reflect on that very, very often, where I was pushing a top performer to do more in bedding, to do more in accessory sales, and I pushed them right out the door, and they became a top performer at a competition right up the street, and they took a lot of business from me. And so I think it's just be very, very mindful of how you push them, how you encourage them, find out what motivates them, tie small tangible bonuses or things like that to some of those KPIs that may, make the store more money or whatever it might be. But ultimately, you want to show empathy, and you want to show a lot of encouragement and praise of those individuals for how well they're doing.
I like where Rob went with that, and I do want to piggyback off of that for just a moment. And my answer to a different part of that question that wasn't actually asked, but for me, it would be, don't allow interpretation to creep into your processes, personal interpretation. And the reason I say that is that, for the most part, average people, like I think Nick Saban was the first one I ever saw talk about it, but average people don't like top performers, and top performers don't like average people. And it usually comes back down to the processes that are followed. And don't allow personal interpretation to creep into those processes, because, if I ask everyone on this call, what does amazing customer service look like? Every one of you is going to answer a little bit differently. And that starts to kind of put some cracks into the cookie, so to speak, And the only way to remove that personal interpretation is to set those measurable parameters and to be precise on direction and to be consistent with how we engage with those on a daily basis. And you've got those top performers that are hitting, and to help push them up is to get other people that are pushing right along with them. And I think when you get the whole team moving in the same direction and everybody understands the direction we're moving and we're very precise with it, then it kind of levels everyone up together. Does that make sense?
100%. I think you're absolutely right on that. I think, as a sales manager, something that you can do is almost project a little bit on your employees what your thought process is. And so if you're having a sales associate that is struggling in a particular area, let's say it's bedding sales or whatever it is, if you yourself are a bedding expert, which you should be, right, in your stores, it's a highly profitable item if you carry bedding. And so whenever the client or whenever the sales associate is working with the client on bedrooms, be available to them. If you notice them, I mean, you got to manage by walking around. You can't manage from an office in this world, right? Sales management does not happen in the sales office. Sales management happens on the floor. If you're a sales manager and you're not buying a new pair of shoes every quarter, I can tell you're not working hard enough, okay? You got to be out there on the floor. You got to get retail feet. And the way you do it is by watching your sales associates out there to, what they're doing. And so if you have a top performer that's selling a bedroom set, introduce yourself and don't forget to add, hey, did you guys look at a new bedding? Typically when you buy a new bedroom set, add that value, because sometimes top performers are zeroed in on the task at hand and they're kind of got blinders on. They're not looking to the left. They're not looking to the right. They're not looking at those ancillary items. They're looking at the item that's right in front of them, and they're looking at the task at hand. And so sometimes those top performers have tunnel vision, and you need to remind them of some of those things. And it's not to chastise them, it's to add value. And if they see that when you as a sales manager interact with the client and their average sale goes up by 20% every time you introduce yourself, they're going to be there with open arms. But you got to make sure that you as a professional salesperson can walk the walk and talk the talk out there on the sales floor, and that you're not interjecting yourself and ruining a deal. And so make sure that you're as trained or as well trained as your top perform salesperson.
All right. Since we only have a minute or two left, just as a reminder, the topic for today was really a sales boot camp for top performers, how to make your top performer just go a little bit bigger, a little bit better. One last word of advice, Matt, for anybody listening, whether they're the salesperson, the sales manager, the sales owner, what is something they need to be taking away from today's webinar?
Be precise on your on your measurable parameters. The coaching has to be an everyday thing. We talk about it all the time, is that, training should only take about each day about the same amount of time as it takes to drink a morning cup of coffee. And, I think that's the big thing, is people think of training or think of coaching and just think of this, fire hose cannon that's going at you once a quarter, or go get your training done for the year and you go do it. But coaching and training has to be a consistent, measured process. And I think that everybody leveling up together is where we all win together. And there are resources out there. We are a major resource to help in that battle. But to manage, like Rob said, manage by walking around and all of us leveling up together. And it's a lot more enjoyable when everybody's kind of flowing the same direction.
Have you ever heard that joke? This girl walks into the gym. She's there. It's her first day. She's on the treadmill, and this guy walks in. And he's just yoked, and she looks at the guy and just says, "Dude, go home. You're done." Which is how we all know that that's not the thing that works. We got.
I like it.
Thanks for that, Matt. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, so it's a really a great question. I think the number one thing that I would want everybody to walk away with on this webinar is to make sure your sales associates are adding more value to the customer interaction than the competition. And so how do you know? Number one, you got to shop your competition. You got to see what they're doing. You got to see, what that interaction looks like from a customer standpoint. And then you want to sit down with your team, dissect what you found out, and strategize with your team to get buy-in as to what the customer experience should really look like. And the only way to perfect that is to, like what Matt said, training is not something that is done. It's something that you do, and you do it every single day. You can go to the gym for 6 hours in one day and you're not going to lose any weight. But if you go there for 30 minutes every single day, you're going to be in the best shape of your life. And so training is a lot like that. Unfortunately, the industry front loads the training, and they get the new sales associate in there and they just dump on them, and they give them the point of sale training. They say, oh, they're trained great, we need them out on the floor. And then they're taking ups and they're burning through ups, and they're burning through the most important person in our business, which is the customer. And so training is something that's done every single day. And as a sales manager, you need to be the steward of that process, and you need to make training a part of your culture, not just from sales trainer ourselves. I'm telling you, as a retailer, it'll absolutely change the way you attract ups. It'll absolutely change the way you close customers and your closing percentage, and it'll absolutely increase your sales if you pay attention to it. And so add more value than the competition through training and mentorship in your stores.
That's great. I want to thank Matt Pridemore and Rob Ball for really taking us through this today. My 3 takeaways are: plan your objection at every stage. They are going to be there, so just be prepared. You already know what they're going to say. They say it. Plan those objections and plan your rebuttal for that. Something that Rob and Matt both pointed on is earn your right to move through the process. So as you move through each point, earn it. And my favorite practice every day, and you can do so by going to hfasalesacademy.com, get a daily dose of these 2 guys. You're welcome, and I'm sorry, but go over there. I think they're giving you a 7-day free trial. The prices are insanely low, like insanely low, to get a little bit of this every single day, and they're constantly doing new drops with new content. So thank you both for giving us the time. For those of you that have stayed to the end and are ready for your Synchrony Ignite code, it is CAMP24. That's CAMP24, and that's 1,000 points to you. And we look forward to seeing you on October 17th. I'm super excited. We have a never before had guest of Piper Sandler, and they're macro microeconomists. We're doing a bifurcated look at about the state of the industry, what is happening now, and how do we navigate some economic trends and market shifts. There's a lot of people that says, when do sales go up? This is going to give you some of that insight. How do we navigate these trends? What's happening this election year? You don't want to miss this. These are our opening keynotes at every Top 100 Summit that we do, and they are the most looked at opportunity. Like, everyone comes for this session. So tune in October 17th, guaranteed to give you some really good insight to take away. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Everyone have a great day, and I hope sales are great for you.
Take care.
Thank you.